Is this real love or a trauma bond? They say love feels like coming home. But what if the home you return to is the very place that once hurt you? You meet someone new. At first, it feels electric, more than just a spark, it's a wildfire burning inside you. You feel like you've known them forever, like your souls are speaking a secret language no one else understands. The way they talk, the way they smile, the way your heart skips a beat when they say your name. It's intoxicating, magnetic, almost impossible to resist. You tell yourself this has to be love. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispers. Or is it something else entirely? Imagine Sarah. Sarah grew up in a home where love was a fragile, ever-shifting thing. Her mother was warm and nurturing one day, but harsh and distant the next. Sarah never knew which version would show up, so she learned to tiptoe around, to watch carefully, to adapt. She craved stability, but her world was unpredictable. Her heart learned early on that love came with pain, and pain was just a part of love. Years later, Sarah meets Jake. Jake is charming and passionate, but sometimes, he disappears without explanation. Sometimes, he's affectionate, other times, cold and distant. At first, Sarah's heart breaks every time Jake pulls away. But strangely, the relief she feels when he returns is like a powerful drug. This push and pull, this roller coaster of emotions, it feels like love, but it's something more complicated. It's a trauma bond. A trauma bond is a deep, confusing attachment formed when pain and love become tangled together. When someone who causes you hurt is also the one you crave the most. Why do trauma bonds happen? Why do we sometimes find ourselves drawn to people who remind us of old wounds? It's because our brains seek familiarity, even if that familiarity causes us pain. From childhood, our nervous systems are wired to recognize patterns that feel safe, even if they're harmful. The familiar chaos of unpredictability can feel safer than the unknown calm of something new. This is the brain's survival mechanism, but it traps us in cycles that are hard to break. Understanding trauma bonds means understanding something difficult, that love can sometimes disguise itself as something painful. But it also means hope. Because once we recognize the signs, we can start to untangle our hearts. We can begin the journey toward real love, love that heals instead of hurts. And in this video, we'll explore the signs of trauma bonding, why it's so hard to leave, and how you can start to reclaim your heart. Before we dive deeper, ask yourself, have you ever stayed with someone because the pain felt strangely familiar? Because the hope for love was stronger than the fear of being hurt again? If the answer is yes, you are not alone. Many people find themselves caught in this web without realizing it. But the first step toward freedom is awareness. Later, we'll talk about how to recognize these patterns in your own life, and how to take steps toward breaking free. For now, let's step back and understand where these trauma bonds begin. Because often, their roots reach back to our earliest experiences, to childhood. Think about James. When James was a child, his father was a hero and a nightmare all at once. One moment, he was the protector, strong, kind, and funny. The next, he was angry and distant, leaving James confused and afraid. James learned to hold his breath, to stay quiet, to become small to avoid triggering his father's rage. But what James didn't realize was that his heart was storing this pain deep inside. And that pain would follow him into adulthood. Years later, James meets Lisa. Lisa's love is unpredictable. Sometimes she's warm and loving, other times, she withdraws, leaving James feeling abandoned. This pattern should have been a warning, but James felt drawn to Lisa, as if she was somehow familiar. Because in Lisa, James was unconsciously reliving the same ups and downs he experienced as a child. This is how trauma bonds are often formed. Not because we want to suffer, but because our hearts seek healing in the only way they know, through repetition. In the coming parts, we'll explore more stories like Sarah's and James's. We'll uncover the science behind trauma bonding, the emotional and psychological traps it creates, and how you can begin to recognize and untangle these patterns in your own life. If you've ever questioned whether what you feel is true love or something more complicated, this video is for you. Stay with me, because understanding trauma bonds can be the first step toward finding real, lasting love. You might wonder, if trauma bonds are so painful, why do they feel so strong? Why do we find ourselves unable to walk away, even when we know it's hurting us? The answer lies deep in our biology and our early emotional programming. When we experience intense emotional highs and lows with someone, our brains release powerful chemicals, dopamine, oxytocin, adrenaline. These create a rush, a craving, almost like an addiction. It's why breakups from trauma bonds can feel like withdrawal from a drug. Your body and mind both want more, even when your heart is breaking. Take Mia's story. Mia grew up in a home where love was conditional, given only when she met impossible standards. She learned that affection came with strings attached. As an adult, Mia's relationships reflected this pattern. Her partner, Alex, could be warm and attentive, but only when Mia behaved perfectly. When she didn't, Alex would withdraw or criticize. This created a cycle of chasing love and fearing rejection. Mia felt trapped, longing for connection but afraid of losing it. This is the emotional roller coaster of trauma bonds. It's exhausting, confusing, and often isolating. But it's important to know, trauma bonds are not about weakness or bad choices. They are about survival. Your heart is trying to make sense of pain, trying to find safety in what feels familiar, even if it's harmful. Understanding this shifts the blame away from you and toward the patterns that shape us all. This awareness opens a door to healing. Another reason trauma bonds persist is the promise of transformation, the hope that love will change the other person, or heal old wounds. When Daniel met Nora, he saw her wildness and unpredictability as a challenge. He believed that if he loved her enough, she would become the stable partner he dreamed of. But love alone cannot fix trauma. We often carry invisible wounds from childhood that shape what we expect in relationships. Sometimes, without knowing it, we choose partners who mirror those wounds, hoping, deep down, to heal them through love. But trauma bonds keep us stuck in patterns, repeating the same pain. This doesn't mean you're doomed to suffer forever. It means the path to real love requires courage, courage to face old wounds, to set boundaries, and to seek connection that feels safe and nourishing. Later in this video, we'll explore practical steps to break free from trauma bonds. But for now, it's vital to understand the roots and reasons behind this complex emotional web. If you've ever asked yourself, why do I keep going back to someone who hurts me? This is the answer. The wounds of the past echo in the present. And the only way forward is to bring light to those shadows. Imagine you're standing at a crossroads. One path leads to familiar pain, the trauma bond. The other leads to healing and true connection. Choosing the latter is not easy. It means letting go of what's known, even if it hurts. It means learning to love yourself first, deeply and without conditions. But the journey is worth it. Because real love is not a wildfire that burns you out. It's a steady flame that warms and sustains you. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into how trauma bonds form in the brain and heart. We'll look at why it's so hard to leave, and what keeps us holding on when everything inside screams to let go. Before we continue, reflect for a moment. Have you noticed patterns in your relationships that seem to repeat? Have you ever felt addicted to the highs and lows, the love and the pain? If so, you're on a path of awakening. And this video is here to walk with you. Now, let's understand what's really happening inside us when trauma bonds form. Our brains are wired to seek connection, it's how we survive as a species. But when love becomes tied to pain, confusion, and fear, the brain struggles to make sense of it. Here's what happens. The amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear and threat, lights up during conflict or emotional pain. At the same time, the reward centers light up during moments of affection or reconciliation. This creates a powerful emotional cocktail. Pain and pleasure mixed together, over and over. It's like being on a roller coaster that you can't get off. Your body craves the highs, even though the lows leave you drained. Remember Sarah's story? Sarah grew up feeling invisible to her parents, and her first love was someone who ignored her just as much. But when he showed affection, it felt so intense, so rare, that she clung to it desperately. Every time he pulled away, her brain sent out alarm signals. But when he returned, showering her with attention, her body flooded with relief and joy. This back and forth created a cycle that hooked her deeper each time. It's important to realize that trauma bonds aren't just about love gone wrong. They are about survival instincts kicking in when safety feels uncertain. This pattern can look like excusing bad behavior because they're going through a hard time. Taking responsibility for your partner's emotions or actions. Feeling unworthy or powerless to leave. All of this keeps you locked in the cycle. But there's hope. The brain is plastic, which means it can change. With awareness and effort, you can rewire your emotional responses and break free from these bonds. Healing begins by recognizing these patterns, not blaming yourself, and learning new ways to connect, with others and with yourself. Imagine standing in a quiet forest. You're no longer on that roller coaster, but walking a calm path, surrounded by trees and sunlight. That's the kind of love and peace that's possible when trauma bonds are healed. In the next section, we'll explore concrete steps to start that healing. How to build healthy boundaries, how to recognize red flags, and how to cultivate self-love that holds you steady. Before we move on, ask yourself, what parts of your past might still be influencing your relationships today? What would it feel like to finally let those go? Your journey toward freedom starts with these questions. And you're not alone. Let's talk about the path forward, how to break free from trauma bonds and build relationships that truly nourish your soul. First, awareness is key. Notice the patterns you fall into, without judgment. When you catch yourself excusing hurtful behavior or feeling powerless, pause and ask why. Next, setting clear boundaries is essential. Boundaries aren't walls, they are bridges to respect and safety. They tell others how you want to be treated, and more importantly, how you want to treat yourself. Imagine Anna, who grew up in a family where saying no meant punishment. In her adult relationship, she feared setting limits. But when she began to gently say what felt okay and what didn't, her partner started to listen. She found her voice, and with it, her power. Self-love is not a luxury, it's a necessity. When you cultivate kindness toward yourself, you create an inner home where love can grow free of fear. Practice small daily acts of compassion. Remind yourself of your worth, nurture your interests, and forgive your mistakes. Healing also means learning to recognize red flags early. Patterns like manipulation, control, or inconsistency are not signs of love, they are signs of imbalance. Trust your instincts. When something feels off, it probably is. Reaching out for support makes a difference. Whether it's therapy, a trusted friend, or a support group, connection with those who understand can guide you through the hardest moments. Remember, breaking trauma bonds is not a straight path. There will be setbacks, confusion, and doubt. But every step you take toward healing is a victory. Imagine the day when you look back and see how far you've come. No longer tied to pain, but free to love in a way that feels safe, joyful, and true. Is this real love? Yes, the kind that welcomes your whole self, flaws and all. That holds space for growth, and stands steady through life's storms. Thank you for being here, for facing these hard truths with courage. Your story matters. Your healing matters. If you want to dive deeper, check the links in the description for resources and the full long video on this topic. And remember, true love starts with loving yourself.